Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here. Now I've been doing a few Doctor Who videos on this channel that aren't reviews. Now normally I do videos like this for Whoniversals and Tooniversals, but lately I've been on a bit of a, not so much kick, but almost kick, I guess, of doing Doctor Who related videos on this channel with my big top 10 stories ranking. It was sort of top 20, but the second 10 were honourable mentions. I suppose it should have been a top 20 after all. And then my big three-part Doctors ranking, least favourite to favourite. Although I say least favourite, I love all of them. So least favourite is very much the definitive in that context, as opposed to a least favourite to favourite episode, etc. Although again, depending on what series or even Doctor we're talking about, again, least favourite could be literally least favourite rather than worst. But I don't really like using that word, even for critical rankings, so I go with least favourite to favourite rather than worst to best. And in this video's case, however, I'm going to be taking a video idea that was first done by Who Addict, who I shan't talk much more about earlier, considering one person's stance on a celebrity's gender, how that person sees themselves, and then how that member of Who Addicts saw them. But I will say another member got unjustified hate against just for disliking an episode. And it wasn't even an episode that a lot of people loved anyway. It was an episode it was Revolution of the Daleks, so it was an episode that people could like or dislike. So yeah, and it wasn't even like, I don't even think the opinion was even a bad faith one. Oh, yeah, so they got on a lot of unwarranted hate back in early 2021. But the other person about their opinions on a celebrity's gender thing, and I believe they were the one who did the list in the first place, so I shan't talk any more about them in this video going forward. This type of thing was also done by Confused Adipose a couple months ago with their Satellite 5 podcast. But yeah, this was a video idea I did kind of want to do, and that is a best and worst series of Doctor Who, where basically you take the best episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, etc. of the new series, and you put it onto a list and you say, okay, these are the best episodes 1, episode 2, etc. and you make a whole series out of that. And the same for the worst. This is the worst episode 1, this is the worst episode 2, episode 3, and so on. Yeah, I don't know if Confused Adipose and the Satellite 5 crew did both, or if they just did the best one. Maybe they did both at the same time. I know they definitely did best, and they got a bit confused with Series 7 because they counted the Snowmen as episode 6, so they had to do an episode 14 on the list, even though only, if you count the Snowmen as an episode of Series 7, only Series 7's got 14 episodes. I count that as a Christmas special, not episode 6 of that series. Episode 6 is Bells of St. John, and it finishes with episode 13, The Name of the Doctor. Similarly, all of the other Christmas specials are going under the sub-brand of specials. In fact, I believe it was originally just specials before, but my list will be Christmas special and then other specials. So New Year, Easter, Anniversary, Autumn, which is what the Waters of Mars is, animated. So that's what my list is going to be 13 episodes, because it's going to be just the new series. Because if we were doing Classic Who, we would have to go up to 45 episodes. Plus, that's also another 26 seasons worth of episodes 1 through, well, up to 45 for the longest season, to add on to the list. And we've already got 15 seasons already with series 1 to 15. I'm considering Bad Wolf seasons 1 and 2 to be series 14, 15. And I think they're going to go back to being called that when the next era comes around, because I would not be surprised if that was season 1 or series 1 again. So this is just going to be episodes 1 through 13 for all 15 seasons of New Who, whether they're 6 episodes, whether they're 8 episodes, whether they're 10 episodes, whether they're 12 or all 13. We're going up to 13 episodes. Not every series will be in here, will go all the way up to 13. As I mentioned, some will stop at 6 or 8 or whatever. So those ones will only go up to that far, but we'll have 13 slots, plus an additional 2 for Christmas specials and 1 for other specials, as I mentioned earlier. We've got 30 episodes to go through across both these lists, best list and worst list. I'm going to call it the worst for this one. I'm actually starting with worst list. When Who Addicts, and I think if they did both Confused Adipose and Satellite 5, did these lists, they did best, first, then worst. And most other people do kind of best and then worst lists. I actually prefer watching the worst one first, and then we build to the best. So you get the negative stuff done first, and then you build to the positive, as opposed to you start with the positive and then end with the negative. So this video, we're going to be taking a look at what would be my least favourite series, what I would consider the worst series of Doctor Who, with the worst episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, etc. from series 1 to 15. And then in the next video, we'll do the best episodes, so the best episode 1, 2, 3 from series 1 to 15 of the revival, seasons 27 to 41 overall. Just a quick reminder of which episodes we will be talking about. For episode 1, we are looking at Rose, New Earth, Smith and Jones, Partners in Crime, The 11th Hour, The Impossible Astronaut. By the way, with 2-parters or 3-parters, it's going to be, or 6-parter, it's going to be one episode at a time. There's episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, so on. To Impossible Astronaut for Series 6, Episode 1, for example, and Day of the Moon is Episode 2. Series 7, it's The Sign of the Daleks. Series 8, it's Deep Breath. Series 9, The Magician's Apprentice. Series 10, The Pilot. Series 11, The Woman Who Fell to Earth. Series 12, Spyfall Part 1. Series 13, Flux Chapter 1, The Halloween Apocalypse. Series 14, Space Babies. And Series 15, The Robot Revolution. Right. So, let's get right into it. There is quite a few great episode 1s on this list, as we will touch upon next time. But there's a few not so very good ones as well. For starters, the second to last of those I just mentioned, Space Babies, is now one of the least popular stories of at least the revival, certainly from the Bad Wolf era, which has quite a few unpopular episodes, which we'll explore later on down the line when we come to contenders for episode placements. And also, sticking with RTD, New Earth is also not a very great start to Series 2. Tooth and Claw would have been a much better series opener for that one. I understand starting with a fun episode, but I think it probably would have been better for episode 2, and they start off with the episode that actually introduces the Torchwood stuff, which is the series arc, and going through that series. I think that would have been a stronger opening, and it's a better episode, as we'll find out next time. But the 2 episodes that came down to the actual contention on the list even over Space Babies, I suppose that would have been third. That would have been the City Bronze position. I think New Earth probably earns that. I don't know. Maybe in the last few years, maybe Space Babies has gone down. Actually, maybe that's gone down in opinion. I think those two are battling for bronze position for worst episode, but silver and gold are going to a pair of Stephen Moffat era episodes, one from Matt Smith and one from Peter Capaldi, being, of course, Asylum of the Daleks and The Magician's Apprentice, the 2 Dalek series openers from the Moffat era. Which one is the gold medal of worst episode 1 and which one is silver? Well, I can reveal that the gold medal worst episode 1 of the revival might actually now eclipse Hellbent as my least favourite episode of the revival, full stop. Because I've kind of slightly come around on Hellbent. Not much, but I can see what it's trying to do, where it's going, etc. I'm going to talk about that later, spoiler alert. But I can see what it wants to do. I can see what Stephen Moffat's intending with it. I don't entirely agree, and I think it does a lot of things wrong, or it doesn't quite do what it's trying to do very well. It's a whole load of bad decisions. I can see what it wants to do. I don't agree with a lot of it, and I don't think it's as smart as its fans would say it is, and "ooh, you don't get it," and all that crap. Like, well, even if I did get it, I don't know if I would actually still like it. And I can kind of see, in the last few years, I can kind of understand a bit more of what it's trying to do and why people would like it, but I still don't think it's good. And I think there was a lot of big problems with it. That being said, because I can see a little bit more of what it does want to do and why some people love it, and what they think is the positives and stuff, and I go, okay, I can kind of see where you're coming from, etc. So that episode isn't my least favorite of the revival anymore, because I can kind of see what it's going for, even though I do not think it does it very well. As that means the Sign of the Daleks is dropped down to worst place, because there's nothing here that I can see what the good intentions was, like, apart from a fun Dalek story. And even then, right, because it's supposed to be a fun Dalek season opener, and yeah, it's set at the Dalek Asylum. But most of the story is more focused on Amy and Rory's terrible, terrible divorce subplot that I ranted about in my review/rant on the Retro channel back in 2020, and on a video on Universals in 2022 for the episode's 10th anniversary. It is easily the worst subplot on any episode that isn't just a pointless diversion away from the thing, like that little girl in Dragonfire Part 3. Like, what the fuck was that all about? But, aside from a pointless diversion or characters just being stupid or arrogant for the sake of it, chances are all gone. Monster Paladin. Other than that, it's probably the worst major plot point or subplot in the whole show. It's pointless. It's just causing drama between two characters who don't have to be there. They're just here because we're going to give them a couple more episodes and then give them a grander farewell than what they could have had at the end of Series 6. I think the ending that they had at the end of Series 6 and the very end of Dr. Widow in the Wardrobe was very nice, and wouldn't mind them coming back as recurring supporting characters, or if they just went away. I can see why they wanted to hold off bringing Clara in, especially with the series being split, and Oswin is, of course, a red herring. Actually, that's actually a pretty good twist and reveal there. That's one of the positives of the episode. But if you are going to keep Amy and Rory round for Series 7 Part 1, why are we doing the divorce subplot in Episode 1? Unless that's going to be something that's going to be a theme throughout Series 7 Part 1 up to Episode 5, which was something someone suggested, and then Angels Take Manhattan was when Amy sticking with Rory was not just that decision in that episode, but the whole will they, won't they split up thing. Could it have worked across the series? Maybe, especially since we have Brian also getting involved in episodes 2 and 4, but it's only for this episode and the very end of Pond Life. Pond Life is it's a 5-part minisode story, so 5 shorter parts making up a 15-minute total run, and it's 4 episodes of them having a pretty good marriage across part of the year, and then suddenly, for some reason, Rory's running away and Amy's shouting at him and crying as he's leaving, and it's revealed because they can't have kids. I talk more about this in both the review and the Universals video from 2020 and 2022 respectively, but this is such a... I mean, it's something that's a real life thing for couples, and it's just handled really badly in the episode, or at the very least, the whole them not wanting to be together because they're supposedly angry with each other, supposedly, despite everything they've gone through. And then it's all resolved really quickly because the Doctor gave his anti-nano, protect from the Dalek nano things in the air, making them hallucinate and stuff that we saw earlier. He gives his to Amy because he doesn't need it. And that's how it's all fucking resolved. The best thing to resolve this subplot was not have it at all, or make it the series arc for Series 7 Part 1. So also the Hearth series arc, I guess. Not to mention a few other strange decisions and pointless moments, and it just makes Sign of the Daleks a bit of a disappointing series opener. Moving on to episode 2. So I suppose I have to try and be a bit quicker with talking about these, especially if I'm going to list every single episode. Now, luckily, when we get past episode 6, we will have one less series, and then once we pass episode 8, we're down to 12 series. Episode 10, after that, it's 10, and then 13, it's just the last 7, the first 7. And then the Christmas specials, I think there's 15, and then the other specials are however many there's left of that. Okay, so episode 2, we are looking at the end of the world, Tooth and Claw, the Shakespeare Code, the Fires of Pompeii, the Beast Below, Day of the Moon, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, Into the Dalek, The Wish is Familiar, Smile, The Ghost Monument, Spyfall Part 2, Flux Chapter 2, War of the Sontarans, The Devil's Court, and Lux. To be honest, Episode 2 seemed to, from what I was just reading now, quite a few of them are good, really good. I think Episode 1 also has quite a lot of really good episodes as well, but there wasn't really many on that list that I didn't actually think were bad. There's a few weaker ones, like Beast Below is not really that great of an episode. It's probably Stephen Moffat's first stumble. But besides the characterization of the Fifth Doctor in Time Crash, I think it's his weakest episode since he started writing for Doctor Who. So, including Curse of the Fatal Death. So, at that time, that was his first stumble, minus the Fifth Doctor's characterization in Time Crash. It feels more like the Sixth. So that's his first stumbling block, and it's his worst until halfway through Series 6. So, yeah, I think these other episodes from Series 5 and the first half of 6 are better. Though that being said, Day of the Moon is a noticeable drop-off from Impossible Astronaut in terms of the individual episode's story quality. I will say I do like the Shakespeare Code, but I will not talk about it anymore because of the writer. Because that writer is and we shall not go any further. We're talking about any of the other episodes outside of acknowledging whether I like them, or if they're good, or bad / dislike them, or somewhere in the middle. And I know a lot of people probably don't really like the Ghost Monument. They probably find it really boring, especially that the most chunk of it is just dredging for a desert planet with the start is really great, and you got that lovely moment at the end. There's a few other cool action moments, and the villains are basically sheets. But you get a good way of blowing them up. So I can understand people finding it boring as fuck, because it is quite a slow dredge story, which is major comparisons to the next two series in Chibnall's era. And I don't think Into the Daleks an amazing episode. I think it's good, but I think it's got a few issues here and there. It's not awful. I just don't think it's particularly great. But none of those episodes, none of the weaker episodes, episode 2s, and especially none of the really good ones, or even amazing ones, none of those compare to the worst episode 2 of the revival, The Witch's Familiar from Series 9. The Son of the Daleks from Series 7, by the way. So this is part 2 of that Magician's Apprentice two-parter that I mentioned was the Silver Medal Worst Episode 1. Its part 2 is the Gold Medal Worst Episode 2. And I think both episodes are probably equally as bad for their own reasons as well, both separate and similar reasons. With episode 1, it's a very dull, inactive start. There's not really much going on as Clara and Missy are trying to find the Doctor, but it's not really that interesting. And then you got that whole medieval stuff where a lot of people switched off. And then I suppose the rest of the episode is a decent build-up to the rest of the story, but if this has been a one-parter, then it could have done and maybe if it was a 60-minute one, it could have been a better build-up to a more satisfying part. Part 2 has the whole shit with the Daleks, the casings being the one that have the Dalek ideology rather than the mutant. This is something that's touched upon slightly into the Dalek, but it's not really focused on too much. And that's one of that story's negative points. This time round, it's actually made canon, and I'm so glad it was retconned back to being the mutant, not the casing, with Resolution, the first Jodie Whittaker, Chris Chibnall Dalek story. And that story is so much better than this one, by the way, guys. In fact, I'd say all the Jodie episodes are better than the Smith and Capaldi ones with the Daleks, although I do like Victor of the Daleks, to be fair. But yeah, this episode treats the Daleks poorly, and then you got Davros opening his eyes, which I don't know. I didn't think I was that fond of at the time. It's somewhat sweet, but yeah, I don't know. It's not the worst or most controversial change to the lore, although it might be a sign of where things are going once you get to that scene. I mean, that and the Saving Gallifrey stuff, but there's a massive difference between the awesomeness of Saving Gallifrey and Davros opening his eyes when we all presumed he had lost his eyes, and he just turns off that one and he's able to see now. I guess he got them fixed between episodes, but in that case, why do you still keep them the middle one, the electronic eye? What's the point? On the whole, Davros trying to trick the Doctor thing, and the Doctor tricking Davros thing. I don't think it works as well as Stephen Moffat thinks it does, because the Doctor can trick his enemies before, especially if they're trying to trick him, but it does mean you spend about 2/3 of the episodes with amazing drama, Peter Capaldi and Julian Bleach playing Davros, acting their hearts out, and it all comes to nothing. I don't think I'm against the idea of them tricking each other on principle. I just think it's because they spend so long pouring their hearts out. Davros opens his eyes, they talk about the Time War, realise everything was futile, because both races have survived. You know, this is all great stuff. It just means absolutely nothing in the end, because neither character meant a thing. Or at the very least, if they did, then it was all in service of, I'm just trying to trick you for your regeneration energy. Uno card reverse. Actually, I knew what you were doing all along, and I let you do it because you got some Dalek sewer things done. Oh yeah, that ties in with that shitty Dalek casings shit as well. God, this episode is bad. Dalek fans avoid this episode, as even though it's got more Dalek fan service than Asylum of the Daleks claimed it was going to have. Spoiler that it doesn't. So Asylum of the Daleks, it does have a bit, but it kind of lies. This episode is a bit better with that, but God goodness, these Dalek stories, Series 7 and Series 9 have really bad Dalek stories. Throw in Series 8's Dalek story being it's better, but it's not, it's not the saving grace of the Dalek stories in the Moffat era, and neither is Victory. And the best Dalek stuff's actually when they have their smaller appearances, like in Pandora Opens Big Bang, Day of the Doctor, Time of the Doctor, Pilot, even Twice Upon a Time, surprisingly. Waiting for a Song for their one-off cameo. Not so much Hellbent, but it makes more sense for them to be there than the Sidemen and the Weeping Angels. Especially the Sidemen, but pre-supremacy of the Sidemen comic, which happens after Hellbent. So unless there's some time travel shenanigans. So yeah, the Daleks are used much better in the Moffat, either in smaller doses or when it's not a story that's about them or focused on them, even if they're like become the big bad at the end, like in the Big Bang or Time of the Doctor. But if they're done in smaller doses or a co-villain like in Day of the Doctor and Pandora Opens. But if they're done in a bit more of a smaller doses, then they usually work fine. But the main stories from the Moffat era, particularly the two openers that they're in, are not so great. On to the third episode. Spoiler alert, Victory of the Daleks is an episode 3, but it's not the one on the list. But the episodes are The Unquiet Dead, School Reunion, Gridlock, Planet of the Ood, Victory of the Daleks, as I just mentioned, The Curse of the Black Spot, A Town Called Mercy, Robot of Sherwood, Under the Lake, Thin Ice, Rosa, Orphan 55, Flux Chapter 3 Once Upon a Time, Boom, and The Well. A good roster of episodes here as well. A couple of weaker ones, like Flux Chapter 3. It's alright, I think I like it more now than I did at the time. Certainly wouldn't put it as the weakest episode of the series. There's at least one more I would put it above, and possibly now might even put it above another. Not including specials, because it would also go above one of those as well. And I think Robot Show is actually pretty fun, to be honest. I think that's a particularly weak one. The one I'm actually thinking of is Curse of the Black Spot. That one's not really that great either. I think I would put Victory of the Daleks and Robot Sherwood above that one. Robot's really fun, to be honest. Some questionable decisions, but I think that may be because of how the direction of how they're taking the 12th Doctor in that story. And I already talked about Victory of the Daleks. Again, some questionable moments in that one, but it's mostly good. So I'd say episode 3s, for the most part, are pretty good. There's a few weaker ones like Curse of the Black Spot and Once Upon a Time. Victory of the Daleks, to an extent. Overall, pretty solid. So far, all of the Russell T Davies 1 episodes have been really good as well, in all honesty. And yeah, I think there's a couple more that are fairly good. There's even a few that I think are incredible. But there's one major exception, even worse than some of these weaker ones I mentioned, and that is and you Jodie Whittaker, Chris Triple fans are gonna be happy that you finally got an episode on this list. It's episode 3, for God's sake. You can be bloody patient. I suppose the Stephen Moffat fans and the Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi fans will be happy it's not them this time. Okay, it is Orphan fucking 55 from the series 12. Yeah, not a fucking surprise to anybody who knows me. Orphan 55 is my least favourite episode of the 13th Doctor's era. Is it my least favourite episode of the 2020s so far? Ooh, maybe. It might still hold that position even after a certain couple of episodes aired in the last couple of years, but from RTD2. But quite honestly, I think Orphan 55 is still the worst episode to air in any year between 2020 and presently 2026, but going up to 2029. If you're one of the people who says it's 2011 to 2020, then it's not the worst. If it's 2020 to 2029, or 2026 at present, yes, fucking... At least it's my least favourite. There's contention, like a certain series finale later this series, and a couple of other episodes from the specials and from series 13, its specials, and from RTD2. But I think Orphan 55 takes the gold medal for worst episode of the 2020s so far, for me personally, and the worst episode 3 of any series since 2005. In fact, it might be the worst episode 3 since 1987. Time in the Rani Part 3. Don't forget, seasons 25 and 26 have Remembrance of the Daleks and Battlefield as their first 4-part story. Yeah, I won't talk too much about this. I've reviewed this twice before on this channel, both when it came out in 2020 and then revisitation review in 2021. So I was rounding up, that was part of as like both a look back as well as after a bit of time, but also rounding off the marathon and the reviews accompanying that I was doing. So, moving on to episode 4s. We have Aliens of London, The Girl in the Fireplace, Daleks in Manhattan, The Sontaran Stratagem, The Time of Angels, The Doctor's Wife, The Power of Three, Listen, Before the Flood, Knock Knock, Arachnids in the UK, Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, Flux Chapter 4 Village of the Angels, 73 Yards, and Lucky Day. Episode 4s tend to be really good by the looks of it. There seem to be a lot of really good ones. I don't know if I'd say there was anything phenomenal. Actually, no, there's one or two. So yeah, episode 4s, again, typically really good. But except for one that I think isn't really that great, and that is Arachnids in the UK. Now, this is absolutely the least worst of these first 4 episodes on this list. Absolutely. I wouldn't say by far, but, well, maybe actually, yeah. Actually, yes, this is absolutely... I know a lot of people hate this one, and some people probably will put it below even Orphan 55, as well as both the Dalek Opener episodes I mentioned. But, yeah, for me, I think it is easily the weakest episode 4 from Series 1 to 15, but it's still better than the other 3 we've talked about so far on this list. So making episode 4 probably the first episode where I'm actually happy to sit down and watch this episode if I was watching it properly. I think there is one episode on here. I was going to say one episode on here that I would actually be happy to sit down and watch. Actually, maybe not so. I think I gave this one a 7 out of 10 at the time of its broadcast. I think that probably has dropped. I don't know if I did it for the revisitation review or not, but I think it would drop. Now, probably closer to being Orphan 55. Actually, no, Orphan 55 was much lower. I think it'd probably be something in the area to some of the other episodes coming up, which more middling review scores now. But yeah, it's got questionable moments and some weird decisions, but I think it's stronger than some of the other episodes on this list, so I'm not going to be too hard on it. I don't think it was my least favourite from Series 11. That was Saranga Conundrum initially. I think if I re-watched it now, this one probably would be my least favourite. Yeah. or Ranskoav Kolos. But Ranskoav Kolos, I understand, is the first draft, so I'm going to give that one a bit of sympathy. My and Saranga Conundrum, I don't know. I think that one might still be my least favorite, but it's between that and Overacted. The other story I had as a least favorite was It Takes You Away, but by the revisitation review, I'd come around a bit more on that one. So I think this one probably is a contender for bottom 3, if it isn't bottom 2. I think Sarang is still the weakest. Moving on to episodes 5 and 6, because 5 and 6 are a two-parter, and I did not score them together on purpose. But let's have a look at episode 5 to talk about what we've got. We have World War III, Rise of the Cybermen, Daleks, Evolution of the Daleks, The Poison Sky, Flesh and Stone, The Rebel Flesh, The Angels Take Manhattan, Time Heist, The Girl Who Died, Oxygen, The Saranga Conundrum, which I just talked about, Fugitive of the Jadoon, Flux Chapter 5, Survivors of the Flux, Dot and Bubble, and The Story in the Engine. There's a couple of weaker episode 5s. Episode 5 is kind of where we, after the first two episodes, we kind of have a bit more of a quality imbalance, a little bit more here. Maybe not quite as much as episode 1 or episode 2, but actually episode 2 wasn't too bad. But more than episode 3 and 4. For starters, I think Angels Take Manhattan isn't really that great of a mid-series finale. Certainly not as good as the previous series is A Good Man Goes to War. I think all of the ones from RTD 1 and Series 5 are all really good, to be honest. Evolution, actually, Darkest Manhattan and Evolution of Darkness are a little bit lower down than those other ones, but they're still very good. They're still much better than a lot of the episodes on the list as a whole. Survivors of the Flux is probably the worst episode of Series 13. If I include specials, that one's Fighting with Legend of the Sea Devils. But my least favourite episode 5, which even worse than the Saranga Conundrum, which I already mentioned, is The Rebel Flesh from Series 6. Right, in the UK being Series 11, by the way. Oh my fucking god! Actually, this one's not even the worst. This is part 1 of a two-parter, and part 2 is even worse. So actually, this one's not even as bad as part 2. This one's pretty bad, but it gets worse. Bit like A Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar, except A Sign of the Daleks at least eclipsed Magician's Apprentice in being the worst. Oh boy, this is episode 6 is not looking good for this two-parter, but more on that in a bit. Actually, I think on my last watch of Rebel Flesh, I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would, or the next episode. I think Rebel Flesh isn't really that great of an episode, but it's still kind of level good. Like, it's still okay in places. It's really the next episode that really hanks the story. And if I was doing individual episode rankings, I probably would put it above Let's Kill Hitler as well. But I don't know. I think also the fact that this episode aired on my 12th birthday, I think I got a tad little bit more favoritism to this episode over the part 2 because of that. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I can't just I can't bring myself to hate this episode on its own. I need part 2 to really dislike the story because part 2 is so bad. But we'll get to that when we come to our episode 6 choice. But compared to all the other episode 5s, even Saranga Conundrum, even Survivors of the Flux, and even The Angels Take Manhattan, which I also would rank fairly low, I think this one had to take the cake. And also, if I am really torturing myself, I need these 2 episodes together, as opposed to the Dalek Series 9 opener, which can be split. I think that's it for two-parters. There is an episode that some people think is part 2 of a two-parter, but it's not. Actually, no, there is 2 other episodes that are in two-parters. One's a part 1, one's a part 2. And then the other one I mentioned would be considered a part 2 or part 3 of a 2 or 3-parter, but it's not. It's a 1-parter. That's just so happens to be linked to 2 other episodes directly in one's case. But yeah, no, we'll move on to our worst episode 6. You can probably guess what it is, but here's the list anyway. Let's have a look at how good or bad episode 6s can be. Starting off with Dalek. The Age of Steel, The Lazarus Experiment, The Doctor's Daughter, very loud car outside, I'll just try and carry on as I can. The Vampires of Venice, The Almost People, because I said The Snowman is a Christmas special, not episode 6 of series 7, The Bells of St. John, The Caretaker, The Woman Who Lived, Extremis, Demons of the Punjab, Praxius, Flux Chapter 6, The Vanquishers, which will be the last episode of this series on the list, outside of the specials, Rogue, and the Interstellar Song Contest. Oh boy, episode 6 seems to be our most mixed episode so far, at the very least since the first one. We've got a couple of really good ones in there, like Rogue is amazing, Dalek is peak, and I like the Lazarus Experiment. I think that's a good one. Age of Steel's really good. Vampires of Venice is really good. Bells of St. John is underrated. Caretaker is pretty fun. The Woman Who Lived is decent. It could be better, but it's decent. The Vanquishers I liked more at the time, but I think it could be better, and it is a bit of a weak finale to that series. It's easily the best finale of series 11 to 15, not counting the specials, because that goes to Power of the Doctor. But if we're doing post-Capaldi, it's easily the best of the 5 series finales. I'd say easily, not that much. And I think Praxis is okay. I think, in my opinion, when it's gone down, but I don't dislike it. But before I get to my actual least favourite, episode 6, which should be pretty obvious if you know what part 2 to the Rebel Flesh is, I will say that Interstellar Song Contest might be the contenders for silver medal worst episode, mainly due to how it handles certain elements, like with the Doctor defeating Kid and then the torture of him and so forth. Kid's he's a genocide survivor. Yes, he's trying to do double genocide already, but the Doctor defeats him and then he goes ahead and tortures him and then leaves him in the hands of the people who committed the first genocide. Like, what the fuck, Doctor? Like, I get you were triggered and you don't know what Kid's plan is, but dude, at the very least, stop after Susan asks you. What happened with that episode? It could have been really good. But the actual worst episode 6? The Almost People. Fuck this episode. This episode is easily... I was going to say easily the worst one. This has actually got Dalek 2 episodes as well. Alright, this is easily the worst episode prior to Asylum of the Daleks to be broadcast from the new series. In fact, probably since Time in the Rani. Or Dragonfire. Depends what I'm more annoyed at. That stupid little girl running around the Dragonfire set, or this episode. I'll cut the little girl some slack. Probably the worst one since Time in the Rani. God, this episode is fucking shit. Oh, God, absolute waste of a story. The 2 Doctors thing is pretty interesting. Like, you don't really know which Doctor's which, especially when they swap the shoes off screen and try and trick everybody. But yeah, other than that, it's just that fucking monster at the end, that fucking Jennifer Gang of Clone monster, and the shots with her. With the close-up with the eyes of her panting in a corner doesn't even line up. Is it supposed, like, in the edit, it doesn't line up? Is it supposed to be a different Jennifer Clone, Gang of Clone, to the one who becomes a monster, or is it the same one? If it's the same one, it's poorly executed in the transition, and if it's a separate one, well, we don't really know. Because, it's just, oh my god, what the fuck? And it wasn't even the worst from Matt Smith's era. Moving on to hopefully some better stuff with episode 7. Okay, so episode 7, we have The Long Game, The Idiot's Lantern, 42, The Unicorn and the Wasp, Amy's Choice, Good Man Goes to War, The Rings of Akaten, Kill the Moon, The Zygon Invasion, The Pyramid at the End of the World, Kablam, Can You Hear Me, Skip Series 13, The Legend of Ruby Sunday, and Wish World. Okay, another mixed bag run of episodes. This is probably the first run of RTD1 episodes that isn't quite a home run. In fact, well, we had a few ups and downs already, but this is the first one where all four of them have maybe a yay or nay episode. Long Game, I think, is good, but it's one of the weaker. It's probably the weakest or one of the weakest episodes of the series. Idiot's Lantern I like more than most people, but I understand that one having quite a few issues that people just don't like. And yeah, it is one of the weaker episodes of that series. 42 I really like, but I think it is it one of the weaker ones of the series? But series 3, even the weakest episodes, which I think are the Dalek two-parter, are still really good. So, or at least good at worst. I think Series 3's got one of the best runs of episodes, and Series 4 have one of the best runs of stories. But yeah, I think 42 slightly on the weekend. Same for Unicorn and the Wasp, which I really enjoy, but it is, again, probably one of the weaker episodes of the series. But again, it's one of the best series of the show. It's got one of the best runs of episodes. So the weakest is still good, although Doctor's Daughter is a bit more of a step down than Series 3's worst. However, the Matt Smith ones are great. You've got Amy's Choice, you've got Good Man Goes to War, and you've got The Rings of Fucking Awesome Akaden, which is incredibly underrated. It's probably one of the most underrated episodes of the whole show. Amy's Choice is quite popular. Good Man Goes to War depends on who you ask. And then on to Peter Capaldi's run. I think Zyklon Invasion's a pretty good first part to that two-parter, and I really enjoyed Pyramid in the World when I first saw it. It's gone down a little bit in opinion, but I still think it's fairly solid. And then Jodie's 2, because Flux ended with 6. I think Kablan's really fun, but it does have a questionable moral at the end. And then Can You Hear Me, I think, has some really good ideas, but didn't quite execute them really well. And then the RTD2 series finale part 1s. Better than part 2s. Better than the part 2s. Enjoyable, but a little problematic, but not as bad as their part 2s. However, I've left off one episode on purpose because that takes the crown. That takes the gold place. I think the two RTD2 ones battle out for silver and bronze. Maybe also one or two others. But I think the worst episode 7 is Kill the Moon from Series 8. Back to Peter Capaldi era smashing now. We just had to... Well, we've only had 2 episodes not from Stephen Moffat's era on this list. It will change. There's going to be some more Jodies, and there will be some RTD 1 and 2. But it's going to be there's quite a few Moffat runs on here. It is split between Smith and Capaldi, though. In this case, we're back to Capaldi for the first time since... well, actually, we've only had one other Capaldi one so far. So, yeah, and Matt Smith's my favourite Doctor, and I've got 3 episodes on this list from his run already. And it's not even and it won't be the last. But yeah, Kill the Moon. This is my least favourite episode from Series 8. Even worse than In the Forest of the Night or Dark Water, Death in Heaven. Yeah, this one has also got some questionable political / humanitarian discussions and themes, but it also has maybe the 12th Doctor at being his most alien at its worst. Like, okay, we can see what it's doing in the first couple of episodes. It is a little bit annoying in some places. I think Time Heist balances it out really well, and Caretaker does a good job with it. And the second half of this series isn't so bad with it. I think this one is just... It's taking the 12th Doctor's non-caring side to it's probably the most annoying. It feels like a step back in the character arc. It's the time lash of the character arcs of this series, except this time it's actually a major plot point. So I suppose it's slightly better than Time Lash in that regard, because that one was just that was a major step back. But yeah, I mean the ending. I know some people aren't as keen on the ending. Ollie Bajak, I know he hates Clara in that bit, shouting Doctor. But I gotta slightly disagree because we know why Clara's like letting off steam. She's shouting because she's angry. She's been betrayed, and she's been like the Doctor's been like tricked her and so on. You know, she has the right to explode at him. So I think where Ollie's coming from is more from the character in general, rather than the context of the situation. So I can understand why people might like Ollie wouldn't like that scene and would find Clara annoying. even more so than usual. But that's actually a scene where I would say that one is deserved. I think she does deserve to vent and rant at the end because the Doctor did trick her. There is like that. She does have a legitimate reason that time round. Maybe if Clara was less of a control freak in the first half of the series, it would be more impactful. But I still think it's handled well. But I think that's probably the strongest part of the episode is Clara's explosion at the end, the explosive rant. And I can't disagree with her, to be honest. But I think the rest of the episode leading up to that, I think the episode mainly is just there to give a reason for Clara to explode at the Doctor, to have enough of his shit, of post-regeneration and everything that's happened. I can kind of understand. Although I would probably understand more if maybe some of the other episodes they were less chummy in. Like Robot of Show and Time Heist, they're fairly chummy. Despite a rocky start with her not really being sure about the new incarnation. But yeah, I think maybe this blow up should have happened a bit sooner. I don't know. But I don't think the episode was really that particularly great anyway. So, yeah, and why is Courtney here? She doesn't really serve anything to the purpose of the episode. You could have removed her or swapped her with Danny Pink, or anybody else for that matter, and it probably would have been better. So, yeah. I don't mind her as a supporting character at the school. Oh yeah, we don't see her again after this episode, and she's still out there. So I don't know. Maybe the class crew will recruit her for something. Yeah, she's not even in class. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sure Big Finish will do something with her at some point. They do it with everybody. Anyway, moving on to episode 8. Better things, maybe. Well, let's have a look. First of all, we've got Father's Day, The Impossible Planet, Human Nature, Science and Library. Okay, so we're so back with the RTD1 episode 8. If the episode 7s were on the slightly weaker side, but still fairly good, it just so happened to be the weaker episodes of those, some of the weaker episodes of those series. Episode 8s are so back, with some of the strongest episodes of the series. Doesn't quite stick the same when we get to Series 5. Hungry Earth, Let's Kill Hitler, Cold War, Mummy on the Orient Express, The Zygon Inversion, The Lie of the Land, The Witchfinders, The Haunting of Villa Diodati, Skip Series 13, Empire of Death, and The Reality War. Right, so another mixed bag of episodes, but slightly leaning more positive with 4 bangers RTD1 episodes. Also, to make up for Kill the Moon, Mummy on the Orient Express is one of the best episodes from Series 8, contrasting the previous one massively, and similarly, Haunting of Villa Diodati easily being the best episode of Series 12. What a banger. And I also think The Witchfinders is pretty good. I probably would rank it lower than It Takes You Away now after the revisitation, but it's still pretty good. I think Cold War's okay. Zygon Inversion is good. But there's a couple really, really bad episode 8s, starting with Series 6's Let's Kill Fucking Hitler. Oh my goodness, what a train wreck of an episode that is. That is, I think that one is a contender for silver medal position worse. That one is so bad. Not as bad as episode 6 of that series, but my god, what a terrible, terrible episode. Lie of the Land's also a contender for worst episode 8, but I think that one probably a bronze, or whatever 4th place would be. I think that would be 4th place, to be honest. And then there's a contention for 2nd and 3rd. And then we've got the first one, which is somewhat slightly obvious, but yeah, I haven't mentioned RTT2's episodes yet. Reality War is the one fighting for 2nd or 3rd position on this time. I don't know. I would like to say 3rd, but considering it's the episode that effectively ended the show for the time being, I think it earns the 2nd medal position. I think that one actually earns silver medal position. I don't know. I think joint. Reality War and Let's Kill Hitler, a joint silver medal. Reality War for what it did for the show, and Let's Kill Hitler as an individual episode on its own. Both of them joint silver medal worst, and then we'll put Lie of the Land an episode written by a writer I really like in the series I really like. Up to, so I suppose, is it third or would it still be fourth? We'll give it the bronze medal, but say it's fourth. Which means the worst episode 8 of series 1 to 15 is Empire of Death. Okay, maybe this episode killed the show even more so than Reality War. Reality War was probably the final nail in the coffin. No, the ending of the Reality War, or specifically the post-regeneration, I don't even know if you call it a scene, a couple seconds with Billy Piper is the final nail in the coffin. But, there was several other nails placed in that one. But I think Empire of Death set the stage for the final nails. Even though season 2, series 15, was mostly really good up to episode 5, and then it kind of falls a little bit towards the end, although I do prefer Wishworld to the other 2 of those last 3. But yeah, series 14, similarly, Space Babies aside, was a pretty decent run of episodes. It was feeling pretty good. Maybe not quite the same level as the RTD one, but it was feeling like we're getting back into the groove of it, and then things could improve later. And that's what we thought with Series 15 as well, when that was, after Robot Revolution was a bit of a slow but decent start, and then we were chugging through episodes. Yes, I did think they were slightly weaker than the one before, but they were all still pretty solid. Really good. I gave 9s or 10s out for those ones, and Robot Revolution was 8, I think. And then you got the last 3 episodes of Series 15, which were a crash. Similarly, Series 14, despite liking Legend of Ruby Sunday, Empire of Death in one swell flew. Series 15, it took 3 episodes to crash. Series 14, Space Babies aside, and I do like Devil's Cord, so yeah, so good one start from there for me, plus the Christmas special. But Space Babies aside, that was probably a bad move on that. Start with that one as well. But crashing and burning with the last episode. I suppose the signs have been there with Legend of Ruby Sunday, but it really is Empire of Death that really causes not just the episode to crash, not just the story to crash, the series, and effectively the entire RTD2 and 15th Doctor eras. Or at the very least, set the stage for them to crash further after the Reality War came out. And now, the 15th Doctor regenerated at the end of that, supposedly. He did, but we don't really know exactly whether Billy Piper was supposed to be the 16th Doctor or not. And RTD's officially left. If it wasn't for the whole out-to-tender process and many people still interested in taking on the show and the BBC being committed to keeping the show going, it could honestly... If it was an outright cancellation, the worst thing to happen to the show would have happened, and it would have been these episodes' faults. Thankfully, it's not quite cancelled yet. It's on hiatus, and a much longer one than we were expecting. So, one of the worst things to happen to the show has happened, but there is still light at the end of the tunnel. And Empire of Death set the stage for the crashing and burning that the Reality War would ultimately fall trappings into, and I think that's why I would put that one probably second to worst. Well, actually, Let's Kill joint second to worst, with Let's Kill Hitler, because that one is so bad. But Empire of Death is even worse and set the stage for the series to basically crash. What we really should be now is in the 19-month hiatus, the equivalent of the 85 to 86 one, with the Christmas special coming out. But because there's not going to be a Christmas special, we're now basically in Wilderness Years Part 2. Well, not Part 2, but Wilderness Years 2, but hopefully not for too long. Hopefully it'll be just a longer hiatus rather than a shorter Wilderness Years. Moving on to number 9, from one part of a two-parter to another, but let's have a look at the total number of episodes. For the record, we're only going up to Series 12 now, since Series 14 and 15 now join Series 13 we're done for those series camp. So starting off with a banger with The Empty Child, then The Satan Pit, The Family of Blood, and Forest of the Dead. Again, episode 9 and RTD1 are banger after banger. Then Cold Blood. I I think this two-part is pretty good, to be honest. This one's good. Then Night Terrors, Hide, Flatline, Sleep No More, Empress of Mars, It Takes You Away, and Ascension of the Cybermen. Mostly really good to start with, but then gets a bit more mixed after Matt Smith. I think Hide's good. I think Cold Blood and Night Terrors are good. Night Terrors is underrated, I think, as is Hyde. Those are underrated episodes. And Flatlines is awesome. But the last 4 episode 9s are probably the weakest of the 12. Those being Slate No More, which is very unpopular. Empress of Mars, which is probably the strongest of these final 4. It Takes You Away, which I have come round on a little bit more, but I think if I was comparing all of these episode 9s together, it is one of the weaker 4. But my choice for the worst episode 9 is Ascension of the Cybermen from Series 12. Part 1 of the super controversial, especially at the time, and for a bit afterwards, finale with the Timeless Children. Yeah, but this one is a pretty bad setup. It works as a Cyberman story. If it's just a Cyberman one, it's not great, but it's fine. Definitely a step down after Haunting of Villa Diodati, but part 1 of this particular 2-parter, boy, definitely a very bad start to the finale. And also, what the hell is all this stuff with Ireland? Like, we're getting glimpses of Ireland, and it doesn't tie into. There's supposedly an explanation of why the Doctor's seeing Ireland, except we don't know if the Doctor's seeing Ireland, and I don't know. It feels so pointless. It could have been fine if it was better explained, or at the very least if we know the Doctor's witnessing that. But it's taking time out of the episode to focus on the characters dealing with the Cybermen or trying to get to. I don't think it's called the crossing, but where they cross the Gallifrey. Like, they could have had much more time to build that up, or to build up the Master's involvement in the story, because he comes in and basically steals the rest of the story once he appears as like a twist, surprise. Oh, hey, I'm back, and now I'm going to take over this story that was supposedly a Cyberman story until now. And you know what? I wouldn't think I would mind it kind of being both, but I think because this episode is more the Cyberman focus, and then the next episode is trying to make up for lost time on the Gallifrey stuff and demote the Cyberman stuff down a bit instead of kind of maybe equalizing them over both episodes. It just feels like the Cyberman stuff is there for set dressing so that they can have the big law changing stuff in the next episode. And it's this episode's not as bad as the next one, but it's just as part 2, but it is definitely a really bad start to the 2-parter. Spyfall is easily the better 2-parter of this series. It's the same situation with the 2 RTD1 finales, except those ones, they have a bit more merit to them. They are actually focusing on one thing that leads, or one or two, or however many things, actually do tie into the next episode. Whilst this time around, the Sideman stuff is basically, you could be its own episode, and then the Master turns up and you do the actual finale there. This could have been a Series 9 situation where if it's 3 single parters that link to each other. But no, this one is part 1 of a 2-parter, following on from the previous episode, which was so amazing, by the way. And then this one is a massive letdown, and it's setting the stage for a worse letdown next episode, and that's not even talking about the controversial change. Okay, on to episode 10s now. Okay, starting off with The Doctor Dances, then Love and Monsters, Blink, Midnight, Vincent and the Doctor, The Girl Who Waited, Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS, In the Forest of the Night, Face the Raven, The Eaters of Light, The Battle of Francisco Colos, and The Timeless Children. And after this episode, we're done with Series 11 and 12, because there are only 10 episodes. Okay, episode 10's up to Series 6. Apart from Love and Monsters, which I actually like. I think that's pretty decent. The third act does let it down, though. Like the first 2 acts are really great, but the third act lets it down quite a bit. But aside from that, every episode 10 is really good. There's some incredible bangers. You've got Blink, which is one of my favourite stories of all time. Midnight, is one of the most popular stories of the series show. Vincent and the Doctor, top 20 episodes for me. Series 6's Girl Who Waited, that was a great episode from that series. Dr. Dances, another great episode. Pretty much a banger with part 1, Empty Child. However, after series 6, the episode tends to get a bit more mixed. Face the Raven's good. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it's good. I like Eaters of Light more than most people, but I think it is one of the weaker episodes of series 10. And Battle and Score of Kolos is a first draft, and it shows. Oh, and In the Forest of the Night. Enough said. Although I think that is just okay. I think that's mediocre. That's meh. It's not something to get ran. You know, I know a lot of people hate it, but it's not one that's worth getting angry about. However, there's 2 episodes that are contenders for worst episode 10. One of them is indeed The Timeless Children. And I probably would put that one here if it wasn't for the other one. That being Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS. Again, like Let's Kill Hitler and Reality War, what's worse? A major, like an episode that's individually bad, or an episode that actually screws over the show? Well, the difference between Timeless Children and Reality War is that Timeless Children didn't end the show. We just went on a long break till New Year, and then another long break till Flux, and that was partially due to COVID. Timeless Children has the really big lore change, or adapting some elements that were presented before in the 80s and 90s, but changed up a little bit and presented in a different result. To help the stuff with the Doctor possibly being the other has been changed to be the Doctor being the Timeless Child, and all that stuff, etc. Something like what they were going to do in the 80s and 90s, but now even more bigger and stuff. And it was a huge, putting it mildly, change, and the backlash was equally huge, putting it mildly. And people would not shut up about it for at least a month and a half, even though the fucking pandemic was on and we had bigger things to worry about. But yeah, sure, rant about the Timeless Child all you want. Yeah, it got boring. It got boring by mid-April, guys. It got the reaction was like, I can see where you're coming from, but guys, the reaction was boring within a month and a half. It was time for you to get over it, especially with what was going on in the world at the time. Like, really, come on. So yeah, but that is basically just kind of like the icing on the top, because the episode has so many other problems. Again, as I talked about with Essential Assignment, and I've done my reviews on them back in 2020 and 2021, so you can do go and check those out. I dislike Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS more, so I'm going to give the Timeless Children a bit of a break. And yeah, Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS again, this was supposed to be a fun TARDIS episode, like Asylum was supposed to be a fun Dalek story, but you had these three scrap guys, these guys who do on scrap, and they damage the TARDIS and bring it on board, and then they're going around the TARDIS, which should be fun, but most of the corridors are you've got to use the same corridor sets a lot. But the interior of the updated TARDIS from 2012-13 was less interesting than, say, lots of round corridors. I don't think that'd be such of a problem if we actually went to explore some of the rooms and did stuff inside that TARDIS, like the TARDIS Adventure game from a few years before. Even the Victorian hospital setting from Invasion of Time, when we walked around those corridors quite a bit for 2 episodes, was more interesting to me than what this episode was doing half the time. And I know those 2 episodes are considered really boring by other fans. So yeah, I was more invested in those 2 episodes than I was in this one. And yeah, it's just and other episodes that just mostly set in the TARDIS do a better job as well. So I don't know. This one, it just feels like we should have been having a fun exploring the TARDIS episode. Maybe there's a countdown. Maybe there's some stuff going on. Maybe you've got these creatures inside. You're trying to solve the mystery. But yeah, this could have been a chance to just showcase the inside of the TARDIS for the other rooms aside from the wardrobe and one or two other things for the first time in the revival. But no, they teased some of them, like the swimming pool and the observatory, and they went to the library for a little bit, but not much. And the Eye of Harmony room, which is nothing like the TV movie one, which I wouldn't mind because it's a different TARDIS, different set, and different budget. But yeah, it doesn't even attempt to even feel like the one from Deadly Assassin either. At least the movies one at least tries to be the one for the TARDIS and tries to be a slightly grander version because of the budget. But yeah, this one's just a CGI ball and a balcony. Bring back the egg. Bring back that, whatever the TV movie one was supposed to be. Bring back the egg, or the column from Deadly Assassin, and the whole stuff with the zombie creature things. Like, what? The way it gets resolved is a bit daft as well. Like, it's definitely shown. It's the Series 7. It's the Rush Series 7 curse that most of these episodes have. Is that you have a really rushed ending. Even though they could have cut some other bits out before. Oh, and one of the supporting actors, possibly one of the worst supporting actors in the series. Thankfully, he's the character who's in it the least amount. You know the one. Go get me some fruit. Oh, actually, when he's wasted as one of the other brothers, he's wasted, and the other guy's all right. But those are fine. They're just a bit wasted. But the third one, the one who's in it the least amount, is thankfully not in it that much, but he's pretty bad. I suppose they just got someone who could pretend to be somebody else. Didn't have to have that much acting experience, but even those who aren't professional actors like myself can be pretty good at acting. Yeah, Journey to the Center of the TARDIS. I don't like this one. I think Timeless Children is probably objectively worse, but that's more for the presentation. Like, there's so much going on, and it's fighting for space and squishing it all together on top of the massive lore change. But I think I would prefer to watch that over Journey to the Center of the TARDIS. Moving on to the episode 11s, they are Boomtown, Fear Her, Utopia, Turn Left, The Lodger, The God Complex, The Crimson Horror, or The Crimson Horror, as that one guy in the episode says, Dark Water, Heaven Sent, and World Enough and Time. And again, we're stopping here as series 11 onwards only went up to 6, 8, or 10 episodes. Okay, episode 11's more mixed bag, but mostly good, I would say. Boomtown, I think, is one of the weaker episodes of series 1, but it's still fun romp. Utopia and Turn Left are two of the best episodes of their respective series. I think The Lodger's fun, but it is one of the weak ones of Series 5. God Complex is really good. The Crimson Horror is underrated. That's one of my favourite, if not my favourite episode of Series 7. Dark Water's not really very good. And I think Death in Heaven's worse. Yeah, we're in another one of those two-part finales where the first part is slightly better than the first, but it's also not. And the story itself isn't really very good. And of course, we have the goat of Heaven Sent, and World Enough in Time. In that case, that two-parter is actually better. That is also the better part, but that two-parter is way better than the Series 8, 12, 14, and 15 finales. But even though we've got Dark Water on this list, I think if I was doing the stories, it probably would be the weakest. But individual episode-wise, I'm going to cut it some slack and say that Fear Her is the worst. This is the one episode of the Russell T Davies Era 1 to be on this list. Yes, I've actually got quite a lot of Moffat and Chibnall episodes on here, and that's no disrespect to either of those guys. In fact, I'm one of the people who does like the Chibnall era. Well, for the most parts. Again, there is a couple of bad episodes in there, but there's also quite a few bad episodes of the Moffat era, even though Matt Smith's my favourite Doctor, and Series 5 is one of my top 10 series of the show. Series 10 is in the top 20, and if I was just doing New Who, Series 5 would be my 4th favourite, and Series 10 is my 6th favourite. But Fear Her is undoubtedly the weak point of RTD1. Easily the weakest episode. It's not as bad. It's probably the weakest episode until we get to the Almost People, but which, funny enough, is written by the same writer. But it's not as bad as the worst from the other two showrunners eras or RTD2. It's just the weakest episode from that particular point in time. But that being said, I think on its own it probably is weaker than Dark Water. Like I said, if Dark Water and Death in Heaven were here together, that one would be below Fear Her. I think that's more for Death in Heaven than Dark Water. But that one would probably take the silver medal for worst episode 11. No triple or RTD2 on this list now. It is solely RTD1 and Moffat. And I think, looking at the rest, there isn't as much competition for the bronze medal. Because Series 9 and 10 are two of the best episodes ever. Series 7 is underrated. Series 6 is really good. I suppose maybe The Lodger could be the bronze medal, but even then I'm stretching it to an episode that's just okay. So it really is between Series 2 and Series 8's episodes, and I think Fear Her just about pits it to the bottom. I think because Dark Water, it's got a bit more gravitas to it. Even though I think the overall story is probably bad, but I think it's got a bit more gravitas to what's going on. Well, Fear Her is a bit of a miss, and definitely a stumble. It is the definition of filler. They needed to fill an episode when Stephen Fry was going to write an episode for Series 2, then it was pushed back to Series 3, then scrapped. I don't know if that episode would be able to be developed now, or if he'd be willing to work on it or write another one. He did manage to appear in an episode, though, so that's good, as well as also play the Minister of Chance in Death Comes to Time. But yeah, they needed an episode filled, and Matthew Graham's a good writer. I have seen the first episode of Life on Mars, and it's a popular series, as is Ashes to Ashes. And yeah, that first episode of Life on Mars was really good. But when it comes to Doctor Who, yeah, his 3 episodes are not great. I can give this one and this one a pass, and Rebel Flesh Up in a little bit. I've been slightly kinder on. It's Almost People that really ticks me off. Yeah, but those two together are not great. But yeah, I think he's probably considered the weakest writer to do new series episodes, or at least to do more than one story, if we're counting the Gang of Two-Parters as one story, depending on whether you're talking about episodes or stories. Sometimes the words can be used for both contexts, like episodes can be used for the story's context as well. But yeah, Fear Her is just a stumble. It's enjoyable for what it is. It's probably the least offensive episode on the list. It's the In the Forest of the Night of Series 2. It's just the fact that Series 2 doesn't have an episode like Kill the Moon, or Death in Heaven on its own. If it's a story that, like I said, that would be Dark Water and Death in Heaven would be below this one. So yeah, Series 2 doesn't have a story as bad as Kill the Moon or Dark Water, Death in Heaven together, but individually, Death in Heaven's worse. So that's why I put this one below Dark Water. But yeah, I would say it's a pretty close call between the two of them, though, and then it's a bit of a step up to The Lodger in the bronze place position, much bigger step. On to episode 12, which nobody will be surprised to see in the slightest. But let's go through them. First of all, we have Bad Wolf, Army of Ghosts, The Sound of Drums, Noisy Kid Outside, The Stolen Earth, The Pandorica Opens, Closing Time, Nightmare in Silver, Death in Heaven, and Hellbent, and The Doctor Falls. Okay, so the answer's obvious if you know me, but let's go through them. Series 1 to 5 and 10 have banger episode 12s. These are some awesome, or at least really good ones. They're bangers, or really great and really fun, really enjoyable episodes. But after Series 5, apart from Series 10, of course, they're not really that great. Closing Time, I really like. The first 2/3 are really great, but the last third shits on the rest of it, and it's an even bigger shit on those two acts than Love and Monsters having a bit of having some stumbles and some strange decisions in its final third, kind of taking the other 2/3 down with it. No, Love and Monsters, maybe it might piss on the first 2 acts, but it's just some strange decisions. Closing Time has an absolutely awful finale. It's one of the worst finales of any episode. And the first 2/3, in my opinion, are really great. It's really great character stuff. Maybe you don't care about Craig or James Corden, but I found it to be really powerful stuff. Again, like with Love and Monsters. And then they shit on it. They shit on it with the worst use of the Sidemen. I think the Sidemen are used worse there than the Daleks are in the 2 episodes early on this, well, 3 episodes actually, but the Dalek openers from earlier this list, apart from the whole casing stuff, like, you know, the casing being the Nazi, not the Dalek itself, like, what? But apart from that, I think the Sidemen are treated worse here in this episode. In Closing Time, they get better use in Dark Water, Death in Heaven, but I think that though that story is worse. But like I said, I think Dark Water as an individual episode is slightly above Fear Her. Death in Heaven is definitely not, and it would drag that story below. So yeah, so Dark Water is better than Fear Her, but Dark Water and Death in Heaven is not. Oh, and Nightmare in Silver. A lot of people hate that one. Yeah, I can kind of see why. I don't hate it. It isn't very good. But you know what my choice is. It is, of course, Series 9's Hellbent. I've already mentioned earlier when I was talking about Sign of the Daleks, because that's now my least favourite New Who episode. It's topped Hellbent, or gone below it now, I suppose. But Hellbent has quite a few decisions that I don't like or don't agree with. And even if I can see where it's coming from now, more so now, I still don't really like them. I don't agree with them a lot. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't work for me. Again, I can see where Stephen Moffat wanted to take the story. I can see where it's going with its ideas, what it wants to do. I can see why people would like that. I can see where they're coming from with their explanation. But I can't. I'm sorry, guys. I just can't agree with you. I can see some of that, but I can't agree. At least nowhere near as much as you guys. And I kind of feel like Hellbent fans are slightly pretentious. No offense. I'm not saying you can't like it, of course, or you can't think it's good. I'm just saying, you know, the people who don't like it or think it's bad, there's a reason for that. And even if they could see where you're coming from, it just doesn't quite work for them either. Yeah, so it does whatever it's trying to do. It just does it really badly. Like, and I think when I talked about the Entertainment Weekly's top 50 Doctor Who episodes, which was the individual episodes, and they put Heaven Sent and Hellbent together, even though they're not really, because they thought it was a two-parter, but they put Hellbent then Heaven Sent. It's like Hellbent / Heaven Sent, as opposed to the other way around. So I don't know why they did that. Maybe they thought they were single parters, but because they're connected to each other, they put them in the same spots. But Heaven Sent being the better one, they put a bit higher. But my point was, when I was talking about that in my video on that on Tunes, was the fact that Heaven Sent basically represents the best of Stephen Moffat's tropes, or at least the Moffat tropes used at their best. Hellbent's the opposite. It showcases them at their worst, or has them at their worst in the episode. So, yeah, these two episodes definitely, they're so polar opposites to each other. And it's amazing that they're actually written as sort of like tied into each other. But yeah, it's so fucking bad. I'll give it this: the first 17 minutes, although a bit slow, not much is happening, isn't too bad. But once the Doctor gets Clara out from her time stream, it goes downhill fast. I'm not going to say that first 17 minutes was particularly amazing either, but I think once we get to him getting Clara out of her time stream is when it goes bad. Not because it's Clara, not because of the character. The script, the story itself goes down really badly. Besides, Clara's in it earlier in the episode, and I said this was still. I mean, these bits are awkwardly placed as well, but they kind of make more sense at the end. I'll give it that. It makes sense at the end why those scenes are there, but it does feel a bit strange in the moment, obviously, especially when you're coming off the back of Heaven Sent. But yeah, she's in those scenes. It's not Clara who causes the episode to go downhill. I mean, Clara's inclusion doesn't help, but it's not exactly her herself doing the downhill stuff. And then the last 15 odd minutes, once the Doctor wastes his memory and we're getting the epilogue, that's also it's a bit better. Like the last 10-15 minutes are bit more likable than the bulk of the middle. So that's minute 17 through to about 50 odd. Is where it's all bad. It's really bad. A few decent moments in there. Great acting, of course, and of course the production values are amazing. But it's the script. The script and the idea is not quite working for me. And unfortunately, it kind of crashes before we get to the epilogue. It crashes. We were building up this series for this. This might actually be the first disappointing series finale. I mean, I didn't think Series 8 was that particularly great, but at least it's building up to something. Series 6 had a disappointing revelation, but at least the rest of it was... The rest of the episode at least had something going for it. It had a story to tell. I'm not saying this one doesn't have a story to tell, but it's just some really weak decisions. I think the Doctor being the bad guy through grief could have been a much better executed episode. Maybe if there was more time to it. Maybe if we didn't have him just sitting around in the barn and waiting for Rassilon to turn up and all the slow stuff. Maybe if we got to the point a bit sooner, possibly. Maybe we could have had a bit more to play with the Doctor being more of a villain this time round. Do it like an Invasion of Time, parts 1 to 4, where we were kind of exploring some of that. How is it Invasion of Time is somehow like, I know I actually kind of like that one, but it is, I understand a lot of people hate that one. How is that one better than some of these episodes? Go and watch Invasion of Time. It's actually underrated. Okay, rounding off the 13 episodes of the series with episode 13, and we're only doing series 1 to 7 now because series 8 through 10 only had 12 episodes. So the episode 13s are The Parting of the Ways, Doomsday, The Last of the Time Lords, Journey's End, The Big Bang, The Wedding of River Song, and The Name of the Doctor. This was the easiest one to choose because there's only one that I think isn't really that great. It's okay. It's decent. A couple problems. In fact, actually, the first act is really, really great, and the rest of it is also pretty good. But it is the weakest of the first 7 finales. And there's a final twist that isn't built up to very well, and kind of diminishes the series' character arcs. And that is The Wedding River Song from Series 6. Of the first 7 series, this episode's easily the weakest series finale. For the first 7. After Series 7, every main series finales are not specials, like Time of the Doctor, Power of the Doctor, The Giggle. So Series 8 through 15, every main series finale, except Series 10's, is worse. So Series 6 is the worst from Series 1 to 7, but everyone after Series 7, apart from Series 10's, is worse. Specials excluded. I'll touch upon the best ones next time in the best ranking when we'll go through all the best ones. But suffice to say, all of RTD1's finales are either some of the greatest... Well, one of them's one of the best episodes ever, and the others also either really great or bangers. Maybe there's a few moments like, okay, that's a bit of a Deus Ex Machina, but not as earned as that banger episode was. But still, on the whole, are really great. There's still... And even if there is some problems with them, they're more than made up for in other areas, unlike the other 2 finales he wrote for his second era. And then Series 5, The Big Bang, is more of a character piece than with the end of the world looming over them, as opposed to it is the end of the universe as we know it, that Pandorica Opens initially ended as. With each finale getting bigger and bigger in scale, including the end of time, and then Pandorica Opens looking like it was going to carry on that, but then Big Bang... It slows it down to be more of a character piece. And I think Wedding River Song and Name of the Doctor are trying to do that as well. I think Wedding River Song, it kind of is let down, mostly by that revelation. Like, obviously, we want the Doctor to survive. We know they're going to survive, and they're not regenerating yet. Or as we establish in Time of the Doctor, is killed and gets a new set of regenerations. But That wasn't a thing yet. I don't think the alternative timeline is a bad concept. It's just it kind of, I don't know. I don't think it quite stuck the landing as well as it could have been. I think the first third is really great. The rest of it not quite as good, but I would say it's more stable than say Love and Monsters and Closing Time with that aspect. And whilst the second and third acts going a bit down from the first act, and they are still fairly decent. So I don't think this story is particularly bad. It's just one of the weak. Series 6 has got quite a few weak episodes in it. But yeah, when it comes to the first 7 series finales, and I'll throw in the End of Time in there as well, this one is the weakest. It's just after Name of the Doctor, or after Time of the Doctor, actually, for me, they go a bit downhill apart from Power and Giggle. And even then, Power is probably better than the 2 anniversary specials miniseries finales. In fact, I think Power of the Doctor is the best specials miniseries finale. But we are not yet done. We've got 2 lots of specials to include. We've got to include my least favourite Christmas special and my least favourite not Christmas special. So the Christmas specials, we're starting with Series 2 this time, are The Christmas Invasion, The Runaway Bride, Voyage of the Damned, The Next Doctor, The End of Time Part 1, we'll get to Part 2 with the other specials later, A Christmas Carol, The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, The Snowmen, The Time of the Doctor, Last Christmas, The Husband's River Song, The Return of Doctor Mysterio, Twice Upon a Time, and then we jump all the way over to The Church on Ruby Road and Joy to the World. That's all the Christmas ones. Again, New Year, we'll go with the other specials. Okay, Christmas specials. Oh, it's 15 of them to choose. It's not exactly going to be very easy to pinpoint a best or a worst Christmas special. But I've got my gold, bronze, and silver medals for the worst Christmas specials, and they're all from Stephen Moffat's era, so you can rule out the RTD ones. So yeah, but I'm going to be found the Capaldi stands and say there's only one from Capaldi. And then I'm going to be found the Matt Smith ones and says that's the worst one. The Matt Smith ones are the third and second. Those ones being specifically the Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe in bronze medal position, and the Snowmen in silver medal position, and the worst of the Matt Smith Christmas specials. And all of the Peter Capaldi ones, apart from my gold placement, would be above those 2. Right, so Capaldi fans, I'm probably going to piss you off again. Moffat fans are going to piss you off again. But my least favourite Christmas episode is Twice Upon a Time. The Series 10 second Christmas special, the 2017 one. Okay, this one was basically just here to fill a Christmas schedule because Stephen Moffat was going to leave at the end of Series 10, but Chris Chibnall didn't want to do the Christmas special. He wanted to start with Series 11, so Moffat, not wanting them to lose the Christmas special slot, wrote one more episode, although they would end up losing that slot anyway for 5 years, as they moved to New Year specials or New Year series premiere for Series 12's case, or in the case of 2022 to 23, had nothing. Sign to what was to come, I suppose, because Christmas specials did return for 2 years in 23 and 24. This year we've got 25. Technically we've got War Between the Land and the Sea, but it didn't air on Christmas Day or New Year's Day. And this year we aren't getting a Christmas special anymore. Don't know about next year. We'll see how it goes. So, yeah, so we got Twice Upon a Time to fill a Christmas slot that was going to become vacant next year anyway. I can see where Stephen Moffat was coming from, though, because I would have liked to have a Christmas special every year. Alas, or a festive special of some sort, but alas, they should have just released Sharda. Sharda was basically animated by the end of the year. They should have just shown that. Well, split into its 6-part version, or into 2 parts of the first 3 and then the 4th, 5th and 6th episodes, but respectively, but whatever. And they didn't do that in 2022 either, even though they had the 6-part version. But whatever, I guess Sharda's just destined never to be broadcast on the BBC. Unless it's BBC America. But not in the UK. I guess it's destined only to be on iPlayer. I suppose its broadcast date is November the 1st then, for the UK? 2023? Okay. But Twice Upon a Time... Yeah, it's. I suppose it's like one of those Star Trek Next Generation episodes where it's an episode that serves as like a wind down after the series finale, and the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Series 9 finale was also that. It was like the epilogue So that followed on from the big series climax, but also taking a look at what happened in the future as well, like a sort of epiloguing the series and wrapping it up. So it does feel like that for the Capaldi era. Unfortunately, just it's not a very interesting story. It doesn't like. It's not very interesting. It's the weakest regeneration story after Time and the Rani, in my opinion. It's the second weakest, and I think it handles the First Doctor abysmally for the most part. Like Steve, like some of those maybe like of the like some of the negative stuff that the First Doctor says in this story. Okay, maybe there was a little bit of that in the era because of that was the times that they were writing and performing it. But for 2017, you would know better. And even if you were going to include some of that, to represent the character, like Stephen Moffat took it to 11. I think he turned the First Doctor into a parody in this episode. This is supposed to be a story about the two Doctors coming to terms with regenerating. The First Doctor doing it for the first time, and the 12th Doctor, now that he's got the new set of regenerations, so the whole final incarnation story doesn't have to work here. War for the next Doctor, because the War Doctor and 10 regenerating into themselves. I still hate that. Even if the Timeless Child has made that somewhat null and void, but it's not. It is still it's still annoying. Yeah, Stephen Moffat was messing around with the Doctor's numbering before we even got to the Timeless Child, but it was fine with the War Doctor, is with the whole 10 regenerating into himself thing from Stolen Earth. So I suppose it's a Moffat and RTD thing, but RTD I don't think intended it to count. So 12 is his first regeneration after getting these new satellites, but he doesn't want to keep losing people, as we kind of saw that with the series 10 finale, and why he doesn't want that to keep happening. And yeah, he doesn't want to be somebody else if he's got to keep losing people. We get that. But I think the way that they portray the First Doctor is really bad. And David Bradley, I think, gives his weakest performance as the First Doctor. I've got to listen to his Big Finish one. He's really great in An Adventure in Space and Time, and he does a great job in Power of the Doctor. And from what I've seen, he does a good job in Time Fracture as well. So, and from the clips from the Big Finish stuff I've heard, he's decent. He doesn't really sound like the First Doctor, but not as much as, say, Richard Herndale or Stephen Noonan, for example. But he definitely looks the role there. And he does a great job as playing William Hartnell, as well as William Hartnell playing the First Doctor in An Adventure in Space and Time, and in the little shorts they did with that as well, like the mini scenes. But here, and I don't want to diss Rachel Talali's direction, because she's one of the best directors of the show, even directing some of the worst episodes, like Hellbent and Heaven Heaven. But she's also directed some of the best episodes, like Heaven Sent and World Nothing Time. But here, I don't know if... I don't know, it might not necessarily been her, but I don't know if I could say it's her, David Bradley, Stephen Moffat's script, or some other factor that this doesn't really feel like the First Doctor, even played by another actor. Because, again, Richard Herndale did a really great job in Five Doctors, and Bradley's done it pretty well in other places. Like I said, Power of the Doctor, even though that's Guardian of the Edge, he's still technically the First Doctor persona of that Guardian, like how the other actors playing Doctors 5 to 8 are representing their Doctors. So, yeah, he does a really good job there. So, I don't know, I think it's just this. It's just this, and... or at least in terms of a wider scale. I mean, again, I have to check out the Big Finish stuff, but even then, I think it's probably slightly better. So I don't know what it is. I just don't think he does a great job. And then the story's just not really that great. And also the villains, they're trying to be mysterious and maybe look evil, but then they turn out to be benevolent. And it's like, so what was the point of... well, not necessarily the point of the story, but the point of making them all creepy and evil? It's not even that much of a twist. I do like Rusty's inclusion, though, and the Doctor going to Rusty to learn about them. That does wrap up not necessarily a loose end, but it does wrap up something that was left from a previous episode from 12th Doctor's era, so it does bring that full circle. It wasn't necessarily a loose end that needed being wrapped up. It was a nice, appreciated one, even though they did kind of just abandon Rusty after that. Oh well, see you in Lost in Time, Rusty. The video game, or the mobile game. It's not awful. It's got its sweet moments. The 1914 Christmas Armistice stuff is easily the best stuff of the episode. That is really heartwarming, and Bill is always a delight. But yeah, there's a whole lot of this episode that I don't think is right or doesn't feel good. The captain's good, and it really should have been more of a first of the 12th Doctor and the captain trying to solve the mystery. And you maybe could still do the twist of them being benevolent that way, but maybe in a slightly more we uncover it sort of a okay, now we kind of seeing what's going on here sort of way, as opposed to oh, it's not an evil plan. I don't know what to do when it's not an evil plan. Not mocking Capaldi on that bit, by the way. I don't know. This the one. I think this one could have been a bit better. And I understand if it was a last-minute script, but I think it could have been better. At the very least, maybe tone down the first Doctor. You know, maybe the 60s-isms. Maybe tone down the 60s-isms, because the first Doctor, he's above that shit. It was the writers and the actors and everyone at the time making this story. If you're look, they avoided it mostly in the Five Doctors. I mean, he did tell Tegan to go and get some food for them, but you know, apart from that, he was mostly pretty fine. So, and most expanded media probably just leave it. So, yeah, they could have done that. Well, there's always next time. If they decide to bring back the first Doctor to play by David Bradley again, there's always next time. They did with Power of the Doctor and Time Fracture. Yeah, that probably helped fix some of this, some of these issues, and maybe also the Big Finish stuff as well. Okay, lastly, we have the other specials, the not Christmas specials. We have the New Year specials, we have the Easter specials, we have the anniversary specials, we have the animated specials, and the Waters of Mars, which counts as counted as an autumn special. So the not Christmas specials are 2007 animated special, The Infinite Quest, 2009 Easter special, Planet of the Dead, 2009 autumn special, The Waters of Mars, 2009 animated special, Dreamland, 2010 New Year special, The End of Time Part 2, 50th anniversary special, The Day of the Doctor, 2019 New Year special, Resolution. Survival Part 1 is a series opener, not a special. So 2021 New Year special, Revolution of the Daleks, 2022 New Year special, Eve of the Daleks, 2022 Easter special, Legend of the Sea Devils, the BBC Centenary special, The Power of the Doctor, the 60th anniversary specials, The Star Beast, Wild Blue Yonder, and The Giggle. Not counting Minnesota, by the way, so no Night of the Doctor or Destination Skaro. Right, and the worst not Christmas special is Legend of the Sea Devils from the Series 13 specials. Hooray! The 2022 Easter special, and to be honest, the Easter specials seem to have the weaker rep with the specials. I like Planet of the Dead, but I think a lot of people consider it one of the weaker episodes, at least of RTD1. And when you've got a list of specials up, it might be on that lower end as well. Yes, so Legend of the Sea Devils. What the fuck happened? What happened, guys? What was it? COVID? If it was COVID, you can be honest. It was COVID, wasn't it? It was fucking COVID. I knew it. I knew it was fucking COVID. But also the script isn't that great either. The execution probably could have been better handled if it wasn't for COVID. But then again, most of Series 13 is like, okay, Series 13 has it, and I suppose either the Daleks and Power of the Doctor have their execution problems under the constraints and situations. But for the most parts, it's mostly solid. I think this one is definitely the one where something went wrong production-wise. Maybe it was constraints. Maybe it was timing, which is odd because they had plenty of time. But whatever, fucking COVID was around, so maybe not so much plenty of time. I don't know. Something went wrong here. I don't know if it was the story, or whether it was production. The editing is shit for the most part. There's a lot of bad A-dubbing and edits and CG. I don't know, something went wrong. This was the Sea Devils' return to the new series. And unlike the story that brought the Silurians back, also written by Chris Chibnall, which was it's sort of a modern remake of Doctor and the Silurians, but it was still pretty good. This one, trying to do new stuff with the Sea Devils, it's a historical one as well, which are typically good in the Chibnall era, but something went wrong. Maybe it was an episode of Flux that had to be, or the original Series 13 that was taken out and used as a special, as for one of the last couple of episodes with Jodie's Doctor. I don't know if it was going to be the regeneration story before Chibnall's approach to do Power of the Doctor. It would have been a bit of a strange final episode if it was, especially with the loose ends after Series 13, but unless it was added back in when he was approached about the Centenary special, and then he said that the Power of the Doctor story for that, and he just used an unused episode from the planned Series 13 as the Easter episode. I don't know, something went wrong with this episode, and it shows. It shows in the script, it shows in the execution, it shows in the visuals. There's a few good moments, like the Doctor and Jazz's relationship kind of reaching its climax here. Even though it's mostly been present throughout Series 13. You get hints in Series 12, but it's mostly a Series 13 and specials thing. So it reaches its not so much the crescendo, but it's definitely its main point in this episode. But yeah, I don't know, something went wrong here. I don't know if it was because of COVID or not. Maybe it was a mixture of all the factors above, all of the above. Maybe it was like a really great script, bad editing and effects and execution. Maybe they didn't have enough time to finish it. Maybe because of COVID, they were under constraints. I don't know. Or maybe they ran out of time nearer to the release date, even though they had a bit more time to make it, but because of constraints or whatever. I don't know. Something went wrong, and I would love to know what. I would love to hear behind the scenes discussions about the making of the new series as much as we have with the classic series. So we've been hearing more about Series 1s in the last, 10 years. But anything after Series 1, it's still kind of not really spoken about as much. Right, so that's it from this list. By the way, if I was mentioning anniversary specials separately, my least favourite would probably be the Star Beast. I was about to say the Giggle, but I think the Star Beast is my lower rated of the 4 anniversary specials. That's 50th and 60th. As for the New Year ones, I think I probably would put Revolution of the Daleks last of those 4, including End of Time Part 2. I don't know if I think the BBC Centenary special is an anniversary special. I think it is the anniversary of the BBC, but not Doctor Who. So I think that would be a separate one, like Waters of Mars. And the animated specials, Dreamland, is the weaker of the 2. Both script-wise, but also more so with the execution. But narrowing down to all the specials, excluding Christmas, it is Legend of the Sea Devils, and all specials, Christmas and other, Twice Upon a Time. But yeah, that's it from me for this ranking, but come back soon for my best Doctor Who series, where we'll be ranking the best. We'll be taking the best episodes, the best episode 1, the best episode 2, etc., and we'll be we'll be making the best series episode list with best Christmas special and best other special, 50th, 60th special anniversaries, Easter, New Year, BBC Centenary, Autumn, and animated, as well as the best Christmas special. So, I think I might have said that already. Thank you so much for watching this long video, probably, and I think the next one probably will also be quite long. I'll probably make it another day, because I'm a bit tired after this one. Before I do go, I shall go through the list one more time. I list every single episode of the worst series, my choice for the worst series of Doctor Who. So episode 1, Asylum of the Daleks from series 7. Episode 2, The Witch is Familiar from series 9. The former starring the 11th Doctor, the latter starring the 12th Doctor. Episode 3, Orphan 55 from series 12 with the 13th Doctor. Episode 4, Arachnids in the UK from series 11, also with the 13th Doctor. Episodes 5 and 6, The Rebel Flesh and the Almost People from series 6 with the 11th Doctor. Episode 7, Kill the Moon, with the 12th Doctor from Series 8. Episode 8, Empire of Death from Series 14 with the 15th Doctor. Episode 9, Ascension of the Cybermen from Series 12 with the 13th Doctor. Episode 10, Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS with the 11th Doctor from Series 7. Episode 11, Fear Her from Series 2 with the 10th Doctor. Episode 12, Hellbent from Series 9 with the 12th Doctor. Episode 13, The Wedding of River Song from Series 6 with the 11th Doctor. The Christmas specials, just the Christmas specials. Twice Upon a Time, the 2017 Christmas special, part of Series 10, with the 12th and 1st Doctors, and introducing the 13th Doctor at the end, as well as also the 2nd, technically, with archive footage. And other special, Legend of the Sea Devils from the Series 13 specials with the 13th Doctor, 2022 Easter special specifically. So yeah, a lot of 11th, 12th and 13th Doctors on this list. There is a 15th as well, and one 10th Doctors. I know it's a lot of Moffat and Chibnall, but for me, RTD1 just had more better episodes. And RTD2s, whilst there are a couple of weaker ones, there just happened to be a couple of Moffat and Chibnall ones that were weaker than it. Although, that being said, some of them were joint, and some of the Chibnall and Moffat ones were joint as well. Or I don't want to sound like I'm a Moffat or Chibnall hater, but I just find those eras a little bit weaker than RTD1. And I think more weaker episodes popped up in those series than the RTD1 series, and also more episodes I would probably consider weaker than the ones from RTD2, except the Empire of Death. Ultimately ending up being the worst episode 8, and also Fear Her from RTD1 being the worst episode 11, although there was competition from Moffat's era. But then again, Moffat and Chibnall had competition as well. Episode 10, competition between Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS and from Timeless Children. And to be honest, episode 13, it really just was the weakest of the first 7 series finales. It just was. That one wasn't even just not even an outright bad episode. That's just the weakest of the first 7 series finales. So yeah, that was there's no intent against them, no hate. It's just how things lined up in the end. What episodes came when, in order of the series, and which episodes were whatever episodes they were. It just so happened there was a lot of 11th, 12th and 13th Doctor episodes on this list, with only one 10th and one 15th Doctor in there to add some RTD 1 and 2 ones to a mostly Moffat and Chibnall filled list. Looking at the best list, spoiler alert, there's going to be quite a bit of RTD 1, but no RTD 2, but there's still a couple of Moffats in there, and there's a Chibnall in there as well. Oh yeah, spoiler alert. It's nothing personal against them, or even against the eras. It's just so happened to be the ones that ended up being on the list. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne YouTube channel.